So, folks, there is a man with the highest level of ideas named Dave Rubin. And he somehow got a member of Congress to come on his show named Ro Khanna in order to debate about Donald Trump's first 100 days. And I, unfortunately, was made aware that this exists. And now I have to make you all aware that this exists. But before we get into it, folks, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the you know the comments, do the things. You know the drill. You know how YouTube works. Go do them right down there. All right. And with that, let's jump in, shall we? High level ideas. Man, look at the fancy intro screen he has for all that Russian propaganda money.
Previously on the Rubin Report.
I don't trust you.
Get him the handbook.
This is your fake news.
Okay, so Dave Rubin has a new editor. I haven't checked in with him in a long time, but like, this is weird.
Previously on the Rubin Report.
I don't trust you.
Get him the handbook.
This is your fake news.
Also, why are you making this? Okay, whatever. Balthazar228, thank you for the $5 dono.
No, I don't have to puke.
Minosine.
Animals, boners, Jesse Waters.
Experience matter.
I'm from Louisiana. Good luck with all of that.
That told me literally no actual information.
All right, guys.
This is his show. This is not like a meme cut of the show. This is the actual thing he put out.
Hello, I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's May 1st, 2025. I had to confirm with the team what the date was before we started just now. Holy
High-level
cow, the year is
ideas.
going. I don't know. I've said this to you before. I don't know if this is just like a middle-aged thing or something, but it just seems to me that the days, the weeks, the months, the years are just going by faster and faster. I mean, we're almost halfway through 25 already.
It's okay, Dave. It's okay. You know, the years keep coming and they don't stop coming.
I do apologize that we're running a few minutes late today. Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat Ro Khanna, will be the co-host on today's show. He's in D.C. right now, and he was hung up in a meeting, so he'll be on any minute. We were trying to delay long enough, but I can't have you guys sitting at your computer for 6 minutes just staring at. I know what you were doing on that other tab, by the way, and you naughty and nasty. I'll tell you that much.
What is this? What was that bit? Dave, do you really want me to do the supercut of all of your stand-up? Because I found your old show, Dave. I found your old show. Don't worry, chat. We will do a supercut of all of his old stand-up, and it's terrible.
But Ro Khanna will be joining us in just a moment. And I do want to say, if you did not see my interview that we did with Congressman Khanna, and it was about 4 months ago or so in D.C., I have tried over the last couple of years to have Democrats on. The last Democrat that I had on before Ro Khanna was Bobby Kennedy, when he was a Democrat. The last Democrat I had on before that.
The last Democrat I had on was that insane anti-vax guy who beheaded a whale and strapped it onto his car while his children screamed and cried, and then tried to make it look like somebody had murdered a bear cub for some reason.
That was Tulsi Gabbard when she was a Democrat. Obviously, it's become incredibly difficult to find Democrats who are willing to have open conversation.
Because Dave keeps transforming them into Republicans with his magic mind powers. Clearly.
Every time we go to D.C., we do the same exact thing. We throw out about 20 invites to Republicans, about 20 invites to Democrats. I don't hide my opinion about any of these things, so people know who I am. They know basically what I think. And Democrats never even respond to us. They don't even respond. However, Ro Khanna did. We had a
well, Dave, it's not their fault. Your ideas are just at such a high level that few Democrats can really engage with them. You know, they're just a high altitude idea.
Great sit down for an hour. We had some agreement and some disagreement. I think he's just getting in his chair right now, so we're going to bring him on in just a second. And I do want to just preface all of this by saying whatever our agreements or disagreements are, in some sense is irrelevant. We both love the country. We might see things a little bit differently, particularly as it pertains to what's going on with immigration and deportations. But the whole point of America is that people who think differently about things can live in a country peacefully together. So with that note,
how can you say that? I'm sorry. How can you say that when they're literally disappearing people for writing op-eds that the administration doesn't like? Fuck you.
I welcome the congressman from California's 17th District, Ro Khanna. Ro, how are you?
Great, Dave. Thank you for having me back on. I saw you got some flack.
I really hope. I have a very nebulous opinion of Ro Khanna. I'm very skeptical of considering him a progressive ally. And I'm wondering if this conversation is going to confirm that I should be skeptical. You know,
Yeah, from your own audience saying,
I
you
did
got
see your
this
super
guy,
chat.
sometimes he says
Thank you for the $2
progressive
super
things.
chat.
Why are you putting him on your show? But I appreciate it because I think even when we disagree, it's so important that we have an exchange of ideas, free speech, not have censorship. And so I'm appreciative for the opportunity.
Thank you. I have no doubt you got a little pushback too from perhaps some of your more progressive constituents. But yes, you're totally right. And that's why I prefaced the show the way I did. And well, let's just dive into it because we had a little Twitter spat. It's okay. Everyone's going to be okay. But we had a little Twitter spat the other day as
Next
it pertains
time you
to
got to have me and our vice president, J.D. Vance. We can settle our Twitter arguments on your show.
You know what?
If you want to have both of us next time, that'd be great.
I will message the vice president personally after this and see if we can make that happen. But before we get into
I'll get you the last point, and I don't want to. He was a Marine. Of course, I respect his.
What is this?
How can RO not have at least Bluetooth earbuds? What's with politicians and bad audio with staffers under 40 in their employ?
Genuinely, I don't know. Like, what I don't get is, like, it's not that expensive to get, like, a camera and a microphone. Like, these people are all rich as hell. I don't know why they don't just get, like, a good camera and a good mic. You know, like, you can get that for, like, a couple $100. And I know they spend that on, like, I don't know, gold-plated statues or some shit for their office on the regular. Like, just get, like, good thing. Like, it's a one-time investment, guys.
Service, and he was one of our mutual best friends, Cullen. They were Marines together in Afghanistan, and many stories. So I think we've got to move in this country where when we disagree, we can still respect each other as individuals and have an argument on the ideas.
I'm with you. It's why I started doing this show this way, and again, why I'm appreciative that you're here because it has been very, very difficult to get Democrats on the show. But before we get into the little Twitter thing, I want to read a quote from you. You gave a speech at Yale recently, and listen to this. Allow me to quote you, if you don't mind. This is directly from your speech. You wrote, "But today, a great anger grips the public, burned by years of war, wearied by economic stagnation, and fearful that the foreign-born among us..."
Yeah, I do have to say, I want to see so much less of Democrats being, like, obsequiously, head bowing and, like, respecting Republicans. I want that to cut that shit out. Like, I do not respect JD Vance. And honestly, saying that you respect JD Vance makes me lose respect for you.
Now compromise a larger share of our population than at any point in a century. From this disquiet rises not a call to reform, but to dismantle, to cast off the judges in their robes, the scholars in their gowns, and the press with its inconvenient questions. I thought that actually might be an interesting way to tee us up here, because a lot of what you're saying there, I agree with in some sense, but I think we probably put much of the blame on, let's say, different people. So the press, I do blame the press largely for lying about an awful lot of things. I do think it's
part of what I don't get here is that, Dave, you are part of the press. Like, this seems like when a guy shoots himself in the foot repeatedly, except Republicans in media will do this all the time. Like, why are you doing... I mean, I know why he's doing it, but, like, it seems so silly to me.
quite possible that a certain amount of people are not making the distinction between legal and illegal immigration.
I may disagree with my fellow across the aisle, Hitler make racial slurs, but we could come together in mutual respect and pass these austerity measures. Rumpf.
Which then causes people to use accusations of racism and everything else. But I guess my question would be, how was the reaction to your speech in Yale? Because you kind of gave it to both sides to some extent.
You know, it got the most reaction probably of any speech I've given. And there were two central points to it. One, that institutions have failed us at the current moment, that people have been left economically stagnant. People feel that their way of life isn't being respected. But at the second point was that we need to have a robust defense of academic freedom, freedom of thought, not having censorship. And I've been concerned about the attacks on universities. I think now I understand that universities need to make sure that they have conservative voices and that there's robust debate, and we can have that argument. But attacking them, in my view, is not the solution.
So
Okay, well, good. You know, like I'm glad. I'm glad that we're at least agreeing here, or at least Ro Khanna is saying, "Hey, don't do this. Don't attack college students for what they say and do." You know, that's probably a good thing that we have someone in Congress willing to at least stand up for that.
Okay, so we'll get to Harvard and some of the things that are going on there. So when you talk about economic stagnation, now it seemed to me you in this speech you were applying this to the current administration. When you see things like the Inflation Reduction Act that the Democrats passed that Biden pushed through, I mean, did that do anything to help?
Yeah, the problem with conservative voices on college campuses is largely that, like, a lot of conservative ideas are just bad ideas. Like, they're not accurate. They're not actually, like, you know, functional. What is Ro Khanna doing here? I mean, that's an excellent question, you know? Sake Drink, you think of the 5 tier 1
Universities
subs?
must have conservative voices because they need more wrong perspectives and could stand to be worse.
That's the secret, Cap. We need to make our universities worse. And therefore our children less educated. Then we'll have the highest level ideas.
Stimulate the economy? Did it not just actually increase inflation?
It did, but first of all, my economic stagnation, I was talking about the last 40 years. I mean, there's some things that I agree with conservative critiques. NAFTA was a huge mistake. Letting China into the World Trade Organization on those terms, huge mistake. We hollowed out steel. We hollowed out aluminum. We hollowed out shipbuilding. We hollowed out drug manufacturing. Industry after industry left. Places like Lorain, Ohio, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, Galesburg, Illinois. You know, they've lost population. Churches have been shrinking. Storefronts are abandoned. And this country didn't do anything. And what we need, in my view, is a Marshall Plan for America, not just for what we did for Europe. Let's rebuild these places. Now, where I have a disagreement with Trump is they think tariff policy is going to solve all of it. But before you can protect industry, you need to build industry. My view is we need investment, federal investment, and federal purchase agreements to be able to do that. That's what the Chips and Science Act was about, that I helped write with Todd Young, a bipartisan act. And, you know, with all this money that's coming in Arizona of TSMC, all of that started because of the Chips and Science Act. By the way, it was a Trump administration idea. The guy, Keith Crouch, in 2018, an undersecretary under Trump, came up with the idea of Chips and Science that we ended up writing into law. So I don't understand why the administration's backing away from that. And the IRA had a lot of investments that are going to create good jobs in red districts. Was it perfect? No. Can it be implemented better? Yes. But do we need industrial policy in this country? I believe we do.
So do you not think that Trump using the tariffs as leverage to get better deals, which again, we'll find out where this all lands in about 70 days from now. He gave about 70 countries, about 90 days to figure this thing out.
Yeah, we'll find it out. I mean, we were supposed to get 90 deals in 90 days, and we don't have any of that, but we'll find out what happens.
Do you not view that as just a negotiation tactic, which will clearly have other countries coming back to us with better deals? Because that seems fairly obvious to me. I mean, I think we've seen that already.
Yeah, will clearly happen. Look at all the deals he's had so far. So many deals, high-level deals.
From several countries.
Oh, he's put a blanket 10% tariff on all these countries. Like Europe has said that they were willing to negotiate 0 for 0 tariffs already. So I don't know why, if it was just negotiation, they've come to the table before any of this, saying that they're willing to eliminate tariffs.
Every time I see Dave Rubin, I am reminded that yes, gay man can be less.
It's very true. Story of the Bard, thank you for the $5 dono. I believe we are almost halfway to our goal.
On American products, for many products. And the other thing is that you could have this negotiation without imposing the kind of tariffs he did, which has created unpredictability. I guess I did support him on steel tariffs. I did support him on strategic tariffs on aluminum. I did support him on strategic tariffs on China. Where
seems like a bad idea,
was when he did it for every country, where he did it across the board at 10%, and where he went so high as he has on some of the numbers. I just think it hasn't been done in the strategic way it should have.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's leave that there for a moment and get into what got me to have you on the show today, because obviously a lot of the stuff that's happening right now with deportations and with judges that are going against the administration, and you can probably argue the administration going against the judges, et cetera, et cetera. You put up a video, we're going to show about 30 seconds of it, talking about the Wisconsin judge who, in your view, was standing up for the rights of immigrants. Go.
Judge for simply standing up for the rights of immigrants. This is without any historical precedent and truly terrifying. Every American, every person who cares about the rule of law and freedom needs to stand up and speak out. We need to demand the release of this judge and have due process and the rule of law. Good morning.
Okay, so the line that got me there was that you said simply standing up for the rights of immigrants. So I responded on Twitter the way everybody does, and I said, what are you doing, man? You responded respectfully, enjoyed our chat. You don't think the federal government arresting a local judge in handcuffs for how she ran her courtroom is a scary overreach of federal power? That was the question you were presenting back to me. I responded with this.
What power?
I said, you said, quote, she simply stood up for the rights of immigrants, not noting illegal, but also she actively broke the law. People get arrested in handcuffs. I enjoyed our chat too. But
you don't know that she actively broke the law, Dave. You're not a lawyer. Guess we'll let the courts decide, huh?
But this, as I mentioned many times, is another reason why I'm done with the Democrats. So before I have you chime in, let's just have Pam Bond.
Like, I love how we're like 10 years into Dave having left the left. And he's like, this is why I left. It's like, you can't pretend like you just did that like 3 weeks ago, Dave. Yeah, tariffs, like what Donald Trump is doing, are not strategic at all. He's literally just doing it as a knee-jerk reflex. Like, if you have a plan for tariffs, you don't just pull tariffs on the entire planet. That's not a plan. That is a weird, childish response.
Andy, the current attorney general who did do this, chime in on what happened.
No one is above the law. In Milwaukee, an illegal alien from Mexico was in court being prosecuted for domestic violence. He was charged with violently attacking a man, punching him in the face 30 times, strangling him, and then attacking a woman by punching her in the face with his closed fist. Both victims were brave enough to be in court. The judge, Hannah Dugan, learned that ICE was outside to arrest him after court. She is now charged with obstruction of justice for sneaking this criminal defendant, an illegal alien, out a back exit through her chambers to avoid his arrest.
Hey, fun fact. So I went over this story in the past, and again, those back doors went back out into the public hallway. he went back through the hall to the elevator he used to get up in there. There was an agent in the elevator with him as he left.
I'm the deal-making president. That's why I use tariffs. What's a trade deal?
Oh, God. Sakitanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. And we are officially over halfway towards our goal, folks. Fun stuff. How do they know he was a criminal? Well, he was being charged in court. I believe the charges were dismissed. And he left through the front door. Like, oh no, the big thing here is, oh no, ICE agents thought he was going to come out the main door, but he came out a different door, and then they still arrested him. The horror. Also, she's under no obligation to help them. State judges do not have to help federal agents. Separation of powers and whatnot. Now, if they had had a judicial warrant, that might have been a different story. They didn't. They had an administrative warrant.
Leaving the victims and prosecutors sitting in court all morning waiting on justice.
All right, Rose. So it seems pretty clear cut to me. So let's just.
It seems pretty clear cut to me. We're going to take this lady at her word. And after all, when has a government agent ever lied? I'm Dave Rubin, and I believe in small government. When have federal agents lied? Tell me that, Ro.
Just do the first part first, which is that you wrote simply standing up for the rights of immigrants. You acknowledge this was an illegal immigrant, not just an immigrant, correct?
I acknowledge that he very well may be undocumented, and he very well may be.
Well, but it's not very well. I mean, he's an illegal immigrant. I mean, that's what
I mean, the term I use is undocumented, but yes, I acknowledge that from everything I've read that he doesn't have legal status in the country.
Right. And is there anything in there that Pam Bondi said that is not true, as far as you know?
Here are the facts as I understand it. First of all, my concern is that the judge shouldn't have been arrested. I mean, if they wanted to put some complaint against the judge, et cetera, obviously I don't condone anyone interfering with the law enforcement. I think arresting a judge for what she did, and maybe you correct me if my facts are wrong. My understanding is he was let out of the jury room, the door. He ultimately had to go in a public hallway. The public hallway, the DEI, the ICE agents basically, or others were there with him. They rode the elevator down. And so this is not an example of some judge who's sort of saying, okay, I'm going to take a secret exit where someone is fleeing the building. The person was ultimately in a public hallway in the building and didn't want the person arrested in her courtroom. And I guess my view is, isn't that a state local judge saying, I don't want the person arrested in my courtroom? It doesn't strike me as a criminal offense. And it doesn't seem that we'll have to look at the facts, but the guy was arrested. He was in a public hallway.
Right. Well, again, I mean, it is the job of ICE to apprehend illegal immigrants. I mean, that is the job of ICE, and it sounds.
Yeah, Dave, that is the job of ICE, but they also have to follow rules. Like they can't just come into the middle of a court proceeding and arrest people, Dave. You know this. You're not. Well, maybe you are that dumb. I don't know. I guess I assumed maybe you weren't, but hey, I guess I couldn't be wrong. I can be wrong sometimes as a treat.
Like she, at the very least, obfuscated or confused their ability to do their job. Now, your issue, I think, also was that she was put in handcuffs and everything else. I mean, at the end of the day, if you had an illegal in your house and ICE came to your door and you hid them or snuffed them out the back, they would arrest you, would they not? You're a congressman. They would arrest me.
Yes, but that's very different. That's if I'm hiding someone who's broken the law in my house or telling them to evade arrest. Yes, that's a crime. But let me ask you this, just because you're being very thoughtful about it. If a judge says, "Do not arrest someone," let's say she didn't have him go out the jury room. Let's say she just had him go out the regular. courtroom.
Sorry.
The regular.
Would you have a problem with that?
Literally, just as you made your point, that sentence, your audio cut out. So if you could just repeat that, please.
Would you have a problem if she just said, I don't want anyone arrested in my courtroom? You can, and it wasn't a question of, okay, they used the jury door. Let's say it was the other door. Do you believe that a local judge should be able to say, look, in my courtroom, I don't want someone to be arrested? A church could say that in a church, or not. That's not concealing someone's arrest. It's just saying in this courtroom, I don't want ICE arresting someone.
Well, I don't know what the actual legal procedure is as it relates to that, whether ICE is allowed to literally
Cedar.
Oh no, Sam Cedar. Whoa, what a fucking nightmare.
Really walk in the courtroom or not. I don't know what that is, but the idea that
I'm sorry, but like an administrative warrant is not issued by a judge. It's issued by like a government official that is beholden to like the like the Pam Bondi. And like, sorry, you need an order from a judge if you want a judge to listen to you. Sorry.
That a judge would do anything so that it would confuse, at the very least, ICE's ability to do their job does seem illegal to me. And then the issue about the handcuffs, it's like, look, I don't think judges are above the law. I mean, I just don't. If you harbored an illegal alien, you'd be taken away.
Hey, Dave, I'm wondering, if that's the standard you're using, why are you so okay with Donald Trump not being put in handcuffs? Just a thought here, but one would think putting Donald Trump in handcuffs would show that he is also not above the law. But I don't seem to recall Dave ever saying anything about Donald Trump getting handcuffs. It's almost like Dave is just kind of a lying sack of shit. An inconsistent sack of shit. Did I see the shit from Massachusetts this morning? You'll have to be more specific.
In handcuffs, and so would I. So I don't see why a judge would be.
I'm also okay with Trump being in handcuffs, but they notably did not handcuff him.
Would be treated any better than us, I suppose, or better than anyone else. As to whether it happened in the courtroom or not is somewhat irrelevant. But the second the guy, let's say, even if I grant you that, right? Again, I don't know the legal ramifications of all of that. But the second he walks out of the courtroom, he should be arrested.
And he can be. It's a public hallway, Dave. They had an agent in the elevator with him who could have arrested him in the elevator, Dave.
And my sense is he was. I mean, he goes to a public hallway. They don't arrest him. I don't understand why they don't arrest him right at the public hallway, but then they eventually arrest him. I would have a very different view of the facts of the case if she had said, come to my house, or here's a car, go drive away, or here's someone who's going to escort you to safety. She basically said, exit the courtroom. A lot of times when there's a lot of press or other things, people exit through the jury room. We'll see the facts. If the facts come out showing that she was actually trying to have this person evade the ICE agents, then I still don't think, in this context of the courtroom, it's a criminal matter, but I'm not going to condone that in any way.
Sure.
But
so
my point is just this idea of the federal government arresting state judges. Imagine, look, there is going to be a Democratic president at some point. Imagine a Democratic president now federalizing the powers and saying, okay, if we disagree with a state judge and think that the state judge is violating in some way the laws, maybe they put the 10 Commandments up in the courtroom and they think it's a violation of establishment, that we're going to send in people to arrest the judge. I just think it's a dangerous line.
Ugh. That sucks, my rear end. My take on that is that the community needs to rally against the police department working together with ICE. Fuck, that sucks.
Line on federalism and separation of powers.
Right. Well, it's interesting. I like when I hear that Democrats still care about federalism and separation of powers. So I will give you that. But let me throw to Tom Homan's opinion on this.
I said from day one, you don't have to support ICE's operations. You can support sanctuary cities if that's what you desire to do. Sanctuary cities can stand aside and watch ICE keep their communities safe. Because any public official, whether you're mayor, city councilman, or governor, their number one responsibility is protection of communities. And ICE has been clear, we're targeting public safety threats and national security threats. I can't believe there's any elected official. And
this man sounds like a cartoon villain. It's crazy, but not like a high tier cartoon villain. He sounds like he would be like the Goon. Like the Goon in like a Batman show, who's like, "Yeah, boss, I'll go get her. I'll tie her up on the railroad tracks, boss." Like, it's crazy.
Especially a judge that doesn't believe we should be doing that, and they should be helping us. But I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch. You can argue against us all you want and protest all you want. But when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted.
You will.
So again, I just agree with that wholeheartedly, and that is connected to what Bondi said as per what the judge did. It sounds like you have a slightly different take on that. But I do want to just get back to the phrase illegal again. In the video, when you said immigrant, like, are you intentionally trying to confuse illegal and legal? Because I think that's the way it reads to most people, even if that is not your intent.
No, I think that people should come into the country through the legal process, and I think that that is the law of the country. And I certainly am not encouraging anyone to come in not through the legal process. My parents came here as immigrants. They got a student visa. They got a green card. They became citizens.
So why not just say illegal? Why not just say illegal instead of just saying immigrant? Which
why not just say illegal? Well, Dave, because they're illegal in approximately the same way you're illegal for speeding. Should people call you an illegal, Dave? Because you've probably driven over the speed limit, right, Dave? Should people call you an illegal? I want more people to push back on this for real.
Which does confuse the issue. If this was a legal citizen of the United States and ICE...
Yeah, it confuses the issue. High-level ideas really need a clarity, Ro. And when you say one word and you are also saying another word, that's very confusing.
For them, nobody would be for it. I'd be screaming about that, of course.
Well, look, I could have said an immigrant without legal status or without documents. I think that the question is in the Abrego case was where I acknowledge the person doesn't have status, is that the person still has some due process. And I guess that's one of the questions is this is where I got into a back and forth with the vice president. His argument is, and I don't think I'm distorting it, is that people who are undocumented in this country, who don't have legal status, are entitled to less due process under the law because he thinks that it's too much of a burden on American citizens. The 14th Amendment says that you have to have due process for every person in America, that every person in America also has free speech. I don't think we have lesser standards of due process for people in our borders. That's just
but what would you okay, so putting aside the constitutional argument there, what would you make about the literal argument that if 10 to 15...
Man, it's so cool that Ro Khanna just is very, I don't know, like averse to combat in this debate. I want more fangs. I want more fight from my Democrats, man. It sucks to see.
15 million people came into this country in the last 4 years, which is what it sounds like, about 10,000 people a day. That quite literally, and again, I'm slightly putting aside the constitutional argument for a moment, how else are we supposed to get rid of people?
Putting aside the constitutional argument, how are we... Look, folks, as everyone knows, you only get constitutional rights when they're convenient to the state. You only get constitutional rights when you're convenient to the state, folks. I mean, after all, why should you get constitutional rights when it's not convenient? And maybe you shouldn't get them when they're convenient either. What if we just didn't have constitutional rights? What do you think about that, Ro?
Whether they are beating women or raping people or bringing fentanyl, or they're just illegal in the first place. How else are we?
Hey, Dave, I'm just throwing this out there real quick, as like part of a thought experiment here. how do you know if they're illegal or legal? How do you know if they are guilty of dealing drugs or guilty of that rape you're accusing them of? How would one go about ascertaining the truth of those claims? And if it's not through what we call due process, a process guaranteed under our Constitution, what is it? Because you're kind of just implying here that it's enough for a government official to point the finger at someone and they're just guilty of those crimes now, right? That seems like a process that could be fraught with all kinds of inaccuracy and corruption, and that's why we don't do it. But maybe that's just too low a level of an idea for Dave to even comprehend.
He's supposed to do it. I mean, nobody was talking about it for 4 years that they were breaking the law coming here in the first place.
Well, I think that we have to deport people who have been convicted of serious criminal offenses. And I have confidence in our legal process to be able to do that. I think you can give someone a due process and then adjudicate that and make sure that they are convicted and deported if it's sort of domestic violence, if it's a violent felony. For a lot of people.
But how do we do that? How do we do that for 10 to 15 million people? And by the way, not all of them are criminals, obviously. Not all of them are violent criminals, but they are all criminals. I mean, it is illegal. If I just wandered into Mexico and they found me, they would kick me out immediately, and it would be well within their right.
Well, I think we need to have secure borders, but certainly, I don't know if it's your view. Do you really believe that everyone who's undocumented in America, and the estimates range from 12 to 15, 18 million. I don't know the exact numbers, and I don't think anyone does. Do you really think if it was up to you, you would have all of them kicked out of the country? I don't know about under Trump and Vance. And a lot of them.
Well, first off, I think I think you can make a completely moral, clean, legal argument that yes, every single one of them have to go. I don't know that that's exactly my position for people that have been.
I hadn't really thought about that. Is that my position? Who can say? I haven't really thought about this issue that I talk about every single day on this show. So I don't really know what my position is, but I'll take it into consideration and try and figure it out sometime in the near future. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Ro. You're such a great friend.
Here for a long time and have jobs and have family here and have been law abiding, but that's part of the problem. There's no way to deal with these massive numbers. But let me show you something that Ilhan Omar said. I would say one of the more radical members of your party, and let me just see if you agree with her here.
Across this country, millions of us are standing up for our human rights and our democracy. Judges are fighting back to block these unconstitutional executive orders. Here in Congress, we are fighting back every single day. We are fighting to protect immigrant families from mass detention and deportation. We are fighting to prevent horrific cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, and Social Security. It won't be easy, but we must continue to organize, to speak out, and to build a future that reflects our highest ideals.
Okay. None
of
of that sounded
This is a woman
objectionable.
who, as far as I understand it, married her brother and broke immigration law.
Can someone tell me, because I have looked into this before, and for the life of me, I cannot tell where this rumor came from that she married her brother, because it's not true, but I also can't figure out where it came from. Is it a Gateway Pundit thing? I genuinely, I have no idea. And I've looked, because this has been a claim in Minnesota for a long time, and it's just insane.
Do you know anything about that?
No, and my view.
I mean, Dave, I heard that you also fucked your brother. I heard that from a very reputable source. I can't remember exactly which one, but I've heard that. I've heard that Dave Rubin fucked his brother. I don't even know if he has a brother, but I heard that it's a possibility. And genuinely, what the fuck, man?
A lot of those things are rumors that people that we shouldn't traffic in unless people have actual facts. I mean, look, one of the things I do, I've done this with the vice president who I've had tremendous disagreements with, is I always praise Usha Vance and his wife and his family. We've got to stop dragging people's family and personal lives. Let's just stick to the issues and debate the issues in this country.
Sure. I mean, there's quite extensive reporting that she actually did marry her brother for his immigration purposes. But putting that aside for a moment, again, she says protect immigrant families. This inability to make a distinction between illegal and legal, I honestly think it is the most destructive thing it's not my party, it's your party. I think people hear that and they go, these guys are bullshit artists. I really believe.
Okay, the claim dates back to 2016, first floated on a Somali-American internet forum. It alleges that Omar's 2009 marriage to British citizen Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi was not only a sham, but that Elmi was in fact her biological brother. The motive, according to the theory, was to secure a path to U.S. citizenship for him. There are pictures of them together, and then... Yeah, but like nothing of note actually showing anything. It's just like from racists on the internet. In 2019, the local paper in Minneapolis, the Star Tribune, did an investigation, found some weird stuff, but not related to her allegedly marrying her brother. And ultimately, the paper concluded we could neither conclusively confirm nor rebut the allegation that Elmi is Omar's sibling, which kind of seems to indicate that he's not. Yeah, basically, there's no evidence that shows that like she married her brother whatsoever. It's literally just internet racists. So Dave Rubin is trafficking in and kind of the equivalent of like Michelle Obama's a man. You know, it's disgusting to say the least. I hope Dave is constantly ashamed of himself.
That I'm trying to give you a nugget here to use.
I would say two things. One is whether you are here through the legal process or whether you don't have legal status. In my view, you should be entitled to due process in America. That's what makes us an exceptional country. That's our Constitution. We can talk about having a more secure border. I said to someone, you know, when people knock on your door, that you say, who's there? I think it's perfectly reasonable for Americans and people are knocking on our door to say who's there and to vet people before they come in.
Sure. So did the previous administration do that?
Not well enough. No. I mean, look, I'm not going to defend that 8 million or whatever the reports were of people undocumented came into the country. I mean, that's not no one. It's not an unreasonable request for Americans, which are an incredibly generous people. Where my parents came as immigrants, I've had an incredible experience. As a son of immigrants, I've had an incredible experience. You know, my father-in-law tells the story of they came through the process. My father-in-law tells the story about how he came here in the 1960s and 70s, and people would give him a place to stay for free. Americans are very charitable people. And I don't think it's unreasonable for us to say, we just want to know who's coming in before and knock on the door and have a process to vet. I think that's perfectly reasonable. The point is, though,
what I find fascinating is that Ro Khanna does not seem to be making any kind of argument in favor of something better. Like I find that fascinating, right? Like I would think that if one were trying to make the argument here,
it hurts my brain to hear David Rubin harp on about making the distinction between immigrants and illegal immigrants, when his Orange Führer and goons do not make that distinction either.
Right. But what bothers me here...
It hurts my brain to hear David...
We just heard that, sorry. What bothers me is that Ro Khanna isn't pushing back and saying something better, right? Like, we need to meet the kind of messaging Dave Rubin is doing here with a vision of something better. Not just like, oh yeah, we should know who's coming in, but like, we should offer a pathway to citizenship. we're never going to be able to fully lock down the border. So offer a pathway to citizenship so that people who do wind up here living, working, alongside the rest of us have a pathway to become citizens. If they are currently undocumented, let us document them. So this isn't rocket science. Offer something better, Ro Khanna. Oh, Spherical Man, that is an excellent point. The reason for the increase in people coming over the border is that Donald Trump's dumbass wall actually made it easier. In order to construct the wall, they had to get rid of all the natural terrain that made it harder to cross. The crews made access roads for building the wall. Yep. Ro Khanna and better aren't words that go together very often. Yeah, I'm being what's the opposite of being dazzled? I'm being dulled by this interview. Also, very knifey duck, thank you for the $5 dono. I very, 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 very much appreciate it. Let's keep going along.
We have people here now. Many of them have been here for years. Some of them are working. They've got young kids. They're paying taxes. And then the question is, how do we deal with them? And if they're violent criminals and convicted, fine, deport them. But for the vast majority, that's not the case. My view is we've got to have some path. I believe a path to citizenship, but at least let's have a path to legalization so they can have some status, so they're not depressing wages and they're working here in a transparent way and not living in fear. And can we get to that place as a country?
And what would you say to the person? And I'm genuinely not saying this is my position, but I am sympathetic to the argument. What would you say to the person who said, well, they broke the law. It does not matter how long they've been here. It doesn't matter if they got married and are paying taxes and everything else. We either are a country or we're not. And we just know if I showed up in Mexico and they found out, I'd be kicked out. If an American showed up in China or an American showed up in Canada for 7 years and then they found out he was illegal, they would just be kicked out. I mean, what would you say to that argument?
I mean, there are countries where they won't, Dave. There are countries where they will offer you a pathway to citizenship, Dave. We can do better than what you are saying.
I would say I understand. I'm not condoning the breaking of law, but I want to see how we move this country forward. And even the person who's ran on the most undocumented immigrant platform, Donald Trump, is in his first term, there were still 12 million undocumented people. My guess is at the end of his second term, there'll still be 13 million undocumented folks. And the question is, do you want them living in the shadows of society, resenting the country, living in fear, or do you want their kids and them to become integrated into the American experience? One of the great things about America is we integrate people to believe in America. And unlike France, right, where you go there in the Algerian community, still generations of Algerians who aren't American. Here you have a son of immigrants, an Indian American, literally representing the most economically consequential place in the world, Silicon Valley. That's possible in America. And I would just say as a nation, we have to find a solution to it, though I don't condone the initial entry.
All right, let's take a quick ad break, and then we'll have more on Trump's first 100
please,
days.
show us the ad.
You know that one house chore you always forget? For me, it's changing the air filters. I didn't realize how bad it was until everyone started coughing. That's why I'm fired up about today's sponsor, Filter Easy, which is proudly made in North Carolina.
Man, I've always wanted to buy something made in North Carolina.
And I think has been probably the leading intellectual backer
I read him
Trump.
all the time. I read Victor all the time.
Well, let's find out what you think of what he said here about Trump securing the border, and then we're going to cut directly to Chuck Schumer, one of your guys, basically saying he doesn't trust the numbers.
He has completely reversed 10,000 people coming in a day, over 300,000 a month, 12 million in 4 years, to essentially 98% of the border is secure. In fact, there is no open border now. Now he has pivoted to try to address the 12 million.
What the fuck are you talking about? What did he do? Nothing has fundamentally changed. I'm baffled by this.
Million people.
Well, if you imagine it, it does seem like it's true.
that Joe Biden not only let in, but scattered all over the United States on often state, federal, local subsidy. That's going to be a task. But he has shut the border. No comprehensive immigration reform, none of the things they said was necessary, none of the things that said that it was impossible, that hampered by. He just did it. We've never seen anything like it.
On border security, the White House and Republicans are touting the claim that illegal crossings are down by 95%, guardways, as they call them, are down by 99%, and only 9 plus foreign nationals were released into the country compared to many more under the Biden administration during the equal period.
Look,
is that not a sign that the Republicans...
I'd say one thing to you. I don't trust Trump's numbers.
Okay, so you said earlier maybe around 8 million people. Victor Davis Hanson said 12. The numbers are very confusing. Some people say it might be as high as 15 million, but okay, so let's say it's somewhere between even 8 and 12. It does seem very, very obvious that the border crossings have completely closed. I mean, what do you make? Well, do you agree with Victor Davis Hanson, and what do you make of Schumer's response? We're all...
I love that Dave is just like, it does seem very obvious that everything closed. Like, based on what, Dave? Based on what info that you have? Like, come on, man.
Watching the same movie and just having two very different emotions.
It seems to me that that he's taken provisions on the border that have brought down the numbers. I don't know the details, but there's obviously a decline. But the problem I have is
I think there should be state-mandated ethnically mixed neighborhoods.
I think that seems weird, but also, like, let me put it this way: that really came out of nowhere. I think that's a weird stipulation, but I can see how you would arrive at that conclusion. I think a better way would simply to be to encourage economically disadvantaged groups. Get them the help that they need to actually move into different neighborhoods. If you just make like housing affordable, if you just build up social services in different areas, people are gonna move there because they want to be in that space. And then everyone coexists and they get to know each other, they make friends, and you know what? It's pretty great. There are plenty of places like this in places like New York City, okay?
Yeah, that does not mean there won't be white flight.
Yeah, of course. But also there's not some people will engage in white flight, other people won't. Also, where the fuck is this coming from and how is it related to what they're talking about? Is this just like a shower thought? But I think if you think that through maybe just a little bit, you might see why having racial group quotas for different neighborhoods might be bad and might lead to not the kind of outcome you're thinking of. We already have a bunch of programs that bring and encourage diversity and help people integrate into different neighborhoods. We already have programs like that. Having a nationally mandated race quota to make in different neighborhoods is not the way to do it. No, issues involving border security would not be solved by that. People aren't going to stop being xenophobic because of that. This is how you there are already groups that are not white in this country who agree with Donald Trump on issues involving the border. This is not how that gets fixed.
The only thing he's focused
Thank you for the
on
donuts,
is doing
though.
things like the Abrego case of deporting folks without due process. This mother who I understand that she was deported because she was undocumented, but she's got American citizens, 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old, and then they are pushed out of America because the mother says that I don't want to be separated from my kids. Really, do we have to deport the mother? I mean, he's doing things like that I think have distracted and taken away from efforts that were bipartisan that said we had to do a better job securing the border.
Right. I mean, I think a case with the mother with the 2-year-old kids, this is why the sort of meme of bleeding heart liberals, like, she was illegal. That's just the truth. Whether it's 99% down or 95% down, I mean, we don't see videos like this anymore. This is from 2 years ago. Who do you blame for that?
Who do you blame for that? But like, what was the context of that, Dave?
Why shouldn't we have open borders? It was so much better than Barnes and Noble.
We need to do it, Dave. We need to bring back Borders books, okay? Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Yeah, like, where is that video clip from? What was the context of it? Who do you blame for that? I don't fucking know. What was happening in the video, Dave?
Because when you talk about your parents coming from India, my great grandparents that came from Eastern Europe, it was people with one bag, people that were not of fighting age. It was a mix of men and women and children and old people.
Wait, I'm sorry. What the fuck are you talking about? It wasn't people of fighting age? What are you also gonna say? It's an invasion from a foreign power? Get the fuck out of here, man.
Border security is nothing but a dog whistle saying my white country is becoming not white.
Olympians, you can only think that if you haven't taken into account how different minority groups that also voted for Trump view border issues. And it's not, they aren't voting on border issues because they're worried about the country not being white. Sorry. Listen more to other groups. Thank you for the $5 dono, though.
People. This all seems to be somehow 20 to 40-year-olds, often with young kids. Who do you ultimately put the blame on for what has happened here?
Well, of course, we needed more border security. I mean, that's obvious. But we also needed, in my view, some path to...
Why is that obvious? Why are you agreeing with this? Why are you agreeing with this absolute clown who invited you on his show? Why?
To having the ability to work legally in the United States, and then many of the people want to go back to their countries. And George W. Bush actually was trying to propose that, to say people should be able to come here, they should be able to work, they should be able to make some money, and then they can go back to their countries. And I blame the Congress for not having. I know the comprehensive immigration reform is kind of a platitude, but the point is there has to be some solution. Vast majority of people often are coming here for economic reasons. It's a good thing that America is the place that everyone in the world still looks up to. And there aren't lines to go to China. There aren't lines to go to Europe or Canada in the same way. But we need to have a process, and we should figure out what that process is, both so that there are legitimate asylum claims, there's a secure border, and then there's an economic ability to come here.
Worshipper of Olympians, thank you for the tier 1 sub over.
I also love people
Twitch.
in North Dakota whining about people coming across the southern border.
Right?
You're literally touching Canada.
There are so many people in this country that complain about border issues. Wait, please tell me how could it be? Wait, okay. I'm going to try and explain this. There are groups of people who are not white who voted for Donald Trump. Notably, in this past election cycle, more Hispanic people voted for Donald Trump. And they aren't voting when they talk about their feelings about border issues and border security. It is not related to them being worried about the country not being white enough anymore. Right? Like that, they're worried because they think, oh, undocumented immigrants are going to come take the jobs. Oh, undocumented immigrants are taking up all the Medicaid that I need for my kid. They're worried about like, oh man, they're a drain on the economy, etc. Like they're worried about how undocumented immigrants are like, potentially terrorists, etc. they're worried not about racial issues. They're worried about a bunch of different things. And all of those things are bullshit. But understand that their issue and their motivation for voting in this way is not related to a deep and abiding concern for white supremacy, right? Now, that is also true, I want to add, about a sizable number of white people who vote on border issues. There is a number, and maybe it's not the majority, but at the very least, a minority of white people who are conservative that vote on border issues and profess to deeply care about them, who also care for those same misguided reasons, and not because of the white supremacy reasons. Like, the number one thing here that disarms this issue is education. The number one thing on this issue that defuses it for folks is by explaining how the dynamics actually work, by explaining undocumented immigrants don't actually get access to social services. Like, by explaining, hey, actually, undocumented immigrants raise wages in the economy that they're in, or the area that they're in. Hey, actually, undocumented immigrants, like, they're just like you and me. They're not actually terrorists and are actually less prone to committing crime. You know? Nicholas Hollyfield, thank you for the $2 super chat. I don't know what you mean by put the word dragon to run this. I don't know what that means, but thank you. So, like, the main issue that I have with immigration and Democrats is largely that Democrats refuse to actually have spines and fight on the issue, to actually stand up and call out the bullshit for what it is. You know? That, like, this is why you have, like, people in Montana complaining about immigrants from, like, Mexico coming across the border into Texas. It's not because it actually affects them or, like, changes their demographics in any way. It's not based on that. It's based on, like, all the conservative fear-mongering they see on television constantly, you know? Like, it's not like the fault of migrants or immigrants at all. But, like, that's... Wait, were you saying that, like... did you think I was saying undocumented immigrants are at fault in this situation at all? Because that's not what I was saying. Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. I don't know why it's not reading out things, but I'll read it out. What, are you telling me the undocumented immigrants the government hires for tax breaks don't get access to government benefits? Yep. Precisely, Saki Tanuki. Thank you very much for the 5 tier 1 subs. No, I was talking about US citizens who are Hispanic or black. You know, like, there are plenty of people in those categories who are conservative and vote on these issues, and they're not voting because they're motivated by, you know, their belief in white supremacy. Now, I will say that, like, white supremacy, like, has a role in propagating those values and, like, trying to spread it to those groups to be kind of, like, useful foot soldiers to further those ends, but, like, they themselves aren't trying to make those calculations from a white supremacist perspective. Are we all clear? We all hunky-dory? Let's keep going. You don't think we'll just self-sabotage? Humans always self-sabotage, but the great thing about us is that we continue to strive to do better. That there is nothing more powerful than the unending struggle to better oneself and one's community. And I think that needs to be, like, one of our core axiomatic values. There is nothing more beautiful than the desire and the execution of constant self-improvement.
To work with dignity and to go back. Now, there are people who may say, we don't want that. I disagree with them. I think if they're of an ability to come here for folks to work, to make money, and then to go back to their families, and if there's a legal process for doing that we should explore that.
So how is that different from what Trump is doing right now? He's trying to close the border, figure out what the process is, and figure out who is here legally and illegally. I mean, how is that different? Which, again, it's wildly different from what the previous administration did, but how is that different than what Trump is doing right now?
I think he's swung too far in that he is denying people in this country due process. Now, you may argue, well, that's a hard thing to do because there's so many people who are undocumented. Are we going to give everyone due process? And I would say yes, and start by focusing on people who are committing violent crimes, and you can get or felonies, and then make sure they have due process and have some sense of deportation. And don't send them to El Salvador. I mean, why are you?
But so Abrego Garcia, I mean, you saw, I assume, the court documents from his wife, who said he repeatedly beat her, and her ex-husband, who said that he was a threat, and she claimed he beat her with a boot. He is in El.
One great thing that Ro Khanna could do right at this very moment is point out that there are a few people working as doggedly to get Kilmar Abrego Garcia back in this country as his wife, and maybe you should respect that. Come on. Hit him with the steel chair, Ro. I know you're not going to, but it'd be cool if you did.
El Salvador, which is his country of origin, that's the country that he is a citizen of, is it not?
Yes, but the court said that he was there was a genuine fear of persecution for him. And that El Salvador prison, that's just not who we are as Americans. I mean, Bukele is
this argument's weak.
Not America.
This argument is so goddamn weak because this is who we are as Americans.
My man, he's been in office for a full 4 years plus. He can't be figuring out stuff at this point.
Thank you for the 5 tier 1 sub, Sake Tanuki. I'm just this isn't who we are. Bitch, we were building concentration camps in the Philippines 100 years ago. What do you, yes, we enslaved people on the basis of race for 400 years. Yes. We've done genocides on numerous groups of people. But this isn't who we are now. I don't know. Maybe this is who we are now. And maybe what we need to do instead is to say, we need to stop being this. We need to stop being like this. We need to be better. In the Philippines, yeah. Alan Smith, the Philippine-American War took place between 1899 to 1913, and around 200,000 Filipino civilians were massacred, and the United States put people into concentration camps where many, many, many of those civilians died. Jay, thank you for the $2 super chat. And yes, look at U.S. jails. Exactly.
That's a different standard of justice.
But he's a citizen of El Salvador, correct? And not a citizen of the United States?
Correct, but the courts said that we could send.
Does Dave think this is hard-hitting journalism? What are you doing, man?
Exact order, because he had a genuine fear for his life, and so in that case, we follow the courts. Now, I understand that it's easier as a country in cases that have bad facts like Abrego not to follow the rule of law and to relax the standard, and that's the temptation. But that's not America. We hold ourselves up to the highest ideals. We hold ourselves up to this ideal that if someone is innocent, someone is accused of a crime, they're presumed innocent. Even if many of us, we see these things on television, we think, of course that person killed the victim, but we believe they should have a trial. We believe they should have the presumption of innocence because we're an extraordinary nation. And I don't think we have to tear at that fabric because of the challenge that we have with people who are undocumented. I think we can still afford that due process that makes us the most exceptional nation in the world.
Do you think optics-wise, when the Democrats then go to El Salvador to meet with this guy who by all accounts was in MS-13,
please bring up the margarita thing.
Was beating his wife by her own account and everything else, and then they're there basically, singing his praises at the very least,
it's not singing his praises to say he deserves due process, you prick. I'm sorry. there are so many cases of people who we thought were 110% guilty. And you know what? It turned out they weren't. It turned out wrong place, wrong time. It turned out we have advanced pattern recognition encoded into our brains. And it turns out sometimes that leads us to think there's a snake in the bush or on the road when actually it's a twig. It's almost like that, Maybe maybe that's why we need due process. So we aren't executing or torturing or denying people their freedom in a country that professes to care about such things for no reason.
Optics-wise, this is a problem. There is an American citizen named Eden Alexander who is somewhere under Gaza right now. I don't see
Ava.
any Democrats talking about him whatsoever. He's an American citizen who did not commit a crime.
Ava 40,
but
do whatever you want to do.
They're not Hamas's standards. I mean, if you're asking me, does Hamas...
Ava 40, do whatever you want to do, okay? Don't let anyone tell you what you should be. Just be how you want to be. And if you can't be how you want to be, it's worth interrogating why that is and thinking about how you want to be.
Hamas have the rule of law? Of course they don't, and of course we should be advocating.
Well, no, I'm asking you, where are the Democrats fighting for an American who's kidnapped and somewhere under Gaza for over 500 days?
Well, we absolutely should be speaking out for that and speaking out for the release of those hostages and passionately speaking out for the release of those hostages. But I think your broad point. I was in rural Nebraska, and it was a room I was talking about the cuts to farmers and the funding that was being cut. And the people kept bringing up this question of due process and the Constitution and the Abrego case in a room full of largely white Americans, not a community with that many immigrants, because they care about the Constitution and they care about believing in the Constitution is patriotism. And they believe that, okay, if it happened to Abrego, it could happen to someone else, and that this is just not a road we should go down. And so to me, it's not about Abrego.
One of the things I also want to see from these types of conversations, I really want to see people explain what due process is, right? Because one of the things it seems like gets just completely overlooked and ignored is like, what is it? What is it? Why do we want it? Why is it so important that we have it enshrined in our Constitution? And the fact that no one seems to really start with with what it is allows it to just become this unchallenged buzzword. All right. And I feel like I've kind of explained it so far, but I'm going to be really explicit right now. Okay. Due process is your right to process in the courts. It is your right to be able to be seen by a judge, to present evidence, to know your accuser, to be able to make your argument and demonstrate your innocence, or at the very least that you did not do the thing you were accused of. It is a chance. It is how we determine whether or not someone did a crime, right? It's what differentiates an accusation where someone's pointing the finger at you from a conviction. That's why we don't just have a king who points a finger at you and says, you're guilty, throw him in jail, and then you just wind up in jail. It's why we have the very phrase innocent until proven guilty. That is due process. And that is important, especially because if you're accusing someone of being an undocumented immigrant, they deserve an opportunity and a hearing in front of a judge to present evidence to the contrary. They deserve that. Because otherwise, as we've seen, the government can just point its finger at you or someone you love, and without any checking whatsoever, send them out of the country into a torture prison. That's what happens without due process. Without due process, you just go to jail. You do not pass go, you do not collect $200, and you rot there. You effectively have no rights And I know that maybe a lot of folks out there don't care about civil rights, but they should care at the very least about their personal property rights. Because hey, guess what? If you don't have due process, the government can come and just take your shit without having to prove anything about it. Worth thinking about if you are a conservative. Even if you don't give a shit about other people, your shit can just be taken. So maybe care about, at the very least, yourself.
Brago. It's not about having sympathy for his particular facts. It's about standing for the Constitution at the hardest times.
So, all right. So, do you think that an illegal immigrant who is in the United States for whatever reason he is in the United States, however long they've been in the United States, however nice they are, that they should be afforded all of the rights that a law-abiding American citizen should be? I mean this philosophically.
The Constitution requires that they have basic due process and they have the same First Amendment rights. The First Amendment says to all persons. The due process applies to all persons. Now, if people want to amend the 14th Amendment, amend the First Amendment, they can try. I think they've served us very well. And now I think this is a legitimate debate because,
It's not. The Constitution makes it very clear that it applies to everybody, not just American citizens. We have constitutional law on this. It's not arguable. The Supreme Court of the United States has already ruled on this numerous times in favor of immigrants who are not U.S. citizens. Like, again, this is not a debatable concept. It is well established in law, and treating it like it is debatable only serves the worst people imaginable. So, like, Ro, what are you doing, bud? Stop.
Here's the thing I give the vice president credit for. He's not obfuscating. He's not saying, well, we sent a plane to El Salvador and it's not up to us whether we get Abrego back. I mean, that's a bunch of, come on. If Trump, do you doubt that if Trump wanted Abrego back, Abrego would come back? I mean, people see through that. Vance at least is saying that, okay, he just thinks that Abrego should be given a lesser standard of due process. I disagree with that. I believe the courts will disagree with that, but that's a debate we can have in this country.
So speaking of the debate, let me read one line on the specifics of what the Supreme Court did. The Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration must facilitate, but not necessarily effectuate, the return of a Salvadorian national deported in March, that's Abrego who we're talking about, stopping short of the full remedy sought by the court's liberal justices. In essence, we can't force, I get what your point is right there, but Trump can't force the president of El Salvador to kick out a citizen of El Salvador and send him back to America where he is not a citizen.
Look, I get what the Supreme Court is saying. Obviously, we can't force the president of the United States to declare war on El Salvador to get someone back. But as a practical matter, I mean, come on, you would acknowledge that if Donald Trump wanted Bukele to send Abrego back, within an hour, Abrego would be back. We're paying El Salvador to have Abrego. At the very least, he could stop the payment. It's not like El Salvador came and captured Abrego. We sent him there. And I think most Americans, one thing the American people have is a lot of common sense, would say, yeah, Trump can bring him back. He just doesn't want to bring him back. Now, the Supreme Court is saying something.
Right, but it's the country of his origin where he is a citizen, and he is not a citizen of the United States. I mean, we're agreeing on that, correct? He is not a citizen of the United States, and he is a citizen of El Salvador?
Yes, but we have asylum law. I assume you support asylum law. Asylum law says basically if you really fear persecution, you shouldn't go back to that country. And the courts here said that there'd be a real concern.
Dave's like, no. I think you know when in World War II when we sent that boat of Jews back to Germany. When they were coming here seeking asylum. Now, you know what? I think we did the right thing. Bold stance there, Dave. Bold stance.
And there should be a concern because he's in a prison that some people describe as a torture prison. We don't know the conditions in those prisons. And I guess the question is, why not just give him the due process and probably he has the court proceedings and he really is a part of a gang, or he really has committed horrendous crimes, then he'll be deported through the appropriate channels and deported somewhere other than El Salvador.
Like, Dave, why are you so afraid of giving this man due process? Like, clearly, if the evidence against him is so damning, like you seem to think it is, like, give him his due process, and then it's no biggie.
Salvador.
Okay, I think we can leave that there. Let's talk.
Yes, I agree, Comrade Girl. We should have accepted the Jewish refugees. I agree with that.
About Rumble Premium for a minute, and then we will get to perhaps an impending impeachment.
Free speech.
No, I'm good without Rumble Premium, thanks.
While flying first class, often in premium private planes.
Also, folks, if you're getting anything out of this, or it's just fun for you, please hit that follow button on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like the YouTube stream, and consider dropping those subs and donos. We are almost 3/4 of the way to our goal. And when we get there, we're going to stop doing this and we're going to do something fun, all right? I'm getting angry out of this? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That means your heart is still working. All right. And also like, comment, and subscribe. Let's keep going.
With a millionaire with 3 houses, yes, I'm talking about Bernie Sanders. She is also considering impeachment.
I mean, we should never take impeachment off the...
Yeah, we should impeach him. Like, he's he's destroying our constitutional rights. Yeah, we should impeach him.
Table we should never take where we see law breaking. We should never take accountability off the table. And I don't think that we should be, promising anything the way that Trump tries to promise certain, locking up his political enemies. But I do believe.
Hey, Polly has his cracker. Thank you very much for the 5
I enjoy your show and the work you do.
Chat.
I will now go back to painting minis and / or becoming a cat pillow. Nothing witty, just a bad no good day.
Oh, I'm sorry you've had a bad no good day, but you know what? Being a cat pillow is pretty great. And painting minis is pretty fun too. Hope you have a fun time.
That our legal processes exist for a reason, impeachment exists for a reason, and it should absolutely be on the table. It should be on the table for every president.
Congressman, is she the future of your party?
Fuck yeah, she is. Like, I'm sorry, there is no one else in Congress, with maybe a couple exceptions, that is working as hard as AOC to actually do something to mobilize people to fight this administration for our rights. And like, frankly, the fact that like he's like, is this the future of your party right here? I can't believe she's saying she wants to impeach the president for all of his crimes. Like, what are you talking? Yeah, of course she does.
She's an important voice in the party. Obviously, she's a passionate progressive. She has a lot of people who believe in her, and that's the great thing about our party and about the country, is that we have a wide variety of ideologies. But she's certainly an important voice in the party.
When she's out there with Bernie fighting the oligarchy, do you find it ironic that she had no problem that actually more billionaires backed Kamala Harris than backed Donald Trump?
I think that's a fair point, David, that more billionaires did back Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. And I think it's hypocritical if we don't call out the spending on all sides. I think what we need, and I proposed, Maine actually proposed this and passed it, 70%. And it said that you can't give a super PAC more money than you can.
Me, Jack?
Well, C321, thank you for the $5 super chat. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe like another 50 subs on top of this. But like, also, maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll try it on tomorrow. If it fits, we'll make it an option.
Can give a candidate. So if you're a billionaire, why is it that you're limited to give only $3,500 to a candidate like me, but you can go and spend millions of dollars on a super PAC? There were millions of dollars spent on Donald Trump's side. There were millions of dollars spent on Kamala Harris' side. It's all wrong. We should get the super PACs out of the business of democratic politics, but we shouldn't be on our high horse saying somehow that Trump's side did it and our side didn't.
Right. So when Democrats talk about impeachment, and we'll get to your colleague Shri Thanadar in just a second, who's bringing articles of impeachment again. We've already done this twice, and nothing came of either one of them. Do you think this helps your party ultimately, even if, say, some of the legal stuff that you were arguing a moment ago about deportations, even if you disagree with the Trump administration on that, do you think that this ultimately helps your party? Do you think that this widens the tent that now is the Democrat Party?
No, I think we need to be focused on what is our future as a party on the economy. How are we going to help people? How are we going to bring new jobs? You know what I think is the best contrast for the Democrats? It's to say, look, Howard Lutnick and Trump, they kind of have this romanticization of William McKinley, Andrew Jackson, James Polk. And, if they were in the 19th century, maybe expansionism and high tariffs would have worked. But we live in the world of AI and technology. And what we really need to do is figure out how we're going to have technology supremacy, how we're going to have the new generation of jobs.
Dude, are you being paid directly to lick Mark Zuckerberg's asshole? What is happening here? Genuinely disgusted. What the hell?
Jobs in Lorain, Ohio, and Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and Democratic Party. I call it a new economic patriotism. Here's our vision of how your families, your kids are going to have economic security and independence in the 21st century. Put our ideas
AI.
out there, and then let the American people see who has better ideas. And
just teach them how to do AI
what the country
prompts.
wants, as opposed to just back and forth political theater.
I saw a bright young man on YouTube once, and he told me how to make AI art with prompts. And he said it was just as good as people art. And his name was Shadiversity.
Right. It's interesting because, again, it seems to me that a lot of the things that you're saying that I'm agreeing with are the things that Trump is doing, even as it pertains to AI. I mean, David Sachs is now the head of crypto and AI. I know you know David, and he's doing a great job on that. We have Elon helping us lead that. X is now merged with the AI company. So I just see those things as, again, sort of like the immigration thing. It's the stuff that Trump's doing. But let's stick with this impeachment thing for just a moment. So Shri Thanadar from Michigan is bringing articles of impeachment against Trump. Here's what he said. The president is attacking me because I filed articles of impeachment asking what the hell did I do? It's all in my 7 articles of impeachment. 1, defying a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. We just referenced that. 2, dismantling federal agencies. 3, imposing damaging tariffs. 4, violating the First Amendment. 5, creating an unlawful office. 6, dismissing criminal cases of donors. 7, denying due process and other constitutional violations. This is not normal. Impeachment is how we fight back. I will always defend the Constitution. I mean, I guess we don't have to go through all 7 of those, but I mean, it's very obvious that several of those have nothing to do with an impeachable offense. Cutting departments and cutting budgets of things have nothing. You may not like it, but it's not an impeachable offense. I mean, are you for impeaching Donald Trump? What do you make of this move?
I haven't co-sponsored it. Do I think that some of the firings of things like the NIH, which does medical research and now I'm told is only at 30% efficiency, is wrong and possibly unconstitutional? Yes, but we fight that in the courts and we fight that through congressional action.
What would be the unconstitutional?
Yeah, exactly, Jess. I'm seeing why Ro Khanna is Cenk's favorite.
Part. I can accept that you might think it's wrong, that that firing the people is wrong, but what would be unconstitutional? Is it not within the president's purview to decide who's running the agencies and how they're going to run it?
Well, there are two things. One, we have an 1883 Pendleton Act in this country, which gives civil servants protections because we didn't want them subject to the whims of the political class. And there are many people who believe that they weren't afforded those protections and were fired because they disagreed for political reasons with the president, because the president disagreed with them on COVID, president disagreed, or Robert Kennedy disagreed on vaccines, and they're firing people on those views. I don't agree with having civil servants fired based on political ideology. That was the whole reform we had in the Pendleton Act. The second thing is that Congress has appropriated funds for some of these positions, and I do think that the president can't just say no to what Congress has appropriated. There's some conservatives who believe that Congress just gets to define what the highest amount of spending is, and the president can define it to be anything less. Let me tell you, if you're a conservative, this could be a horrifying mistake. What if you had a liberal progressive president who thinks that we should only spend $100 billion and not $1 trillion on defense? Do you think if Congress appropriates a defense budget, that president should just say, okay, we don't have to spend any of this? I don't think that's how the Constitution works. these are complex issues. I believe I'm on the right side of the law, but I also have confidence in the courts and the process to figure it out, and that's where I think our energy should be.
Okay, so again, so you're not for impeachment, but you would be for having some of these issues hung up in the courts, sort of like, and that's consistent with what you said as it pertains to deportations.
I have confidence. I mean, even though it's a conservative court, I have confidence that on these fundamental issues, that the courts will vindicate our point of view. And I think let's have this debate go all the way to the Supreme Court. Does the president have to have to spend the money Congress appropriates? I think the Supreme Court should take this up soon and just issue the ruling. My view is it's pretty obvious that the president should have to do that. And what are the protections for civil servants? Let's make sure that we get clear guidance on this.
As it pertains to the courts, and I really do appreciate that you repeatedly said that if the shoe was on the other foot, how would people feel, how would conservatives feel about some of these things? Are you worried that part of the issue here, and I know a lot of Trump supporters strongly feel this, that basically any lower court judge can get virtually anything the president does hung up in courts, and thus that actually puts us in a constitutional crisis? Not necessarily that what the president's doing is illegal, but that the judicial...
Do you believe in the separation of powers, the co-equal branches of the government actually functioning? I don't know if I do. I think that maybe this is a good idea. Hear me out, Ro. What if the president was able to just do things without any kind of oversight? What if he could just do things? What do you think about that idea? I think it'd be great. What about you?
branch can basically just slow roll the president so that we'll get into midterms. They could potentially lose the House and he's a lame duck, and that's it. Because I think a lot of people really do feel that and see that is what's happening to some extent.
Media breakdown. Thank you for the $5
Look, even
dono.
Elena Kagan, the liberal Supreme Court justice.
I get what he's saying, but I would love if we had a president who spent almost nothing on defense, so tired of defending contractors. Right? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Also, thank you for officially bringing us over the 3/4 mark. Chat, we need 24 more subs. Let's go.
Said that there is some challenge if a single federal district court judge could just have a blanket national injunction on a presidential action. And if there's going to be an honest debate in this country about what it takes of making sure that a president is checked by the Constitution while understanding the president has popular support, I'm open to having that conversation. Maybe there's an expedited review of the Supreme Court, an expedited review of the appellate circuit. But I don't think that the answer to that is just defying court orders. I mean, the answer to that is figure out how you reform the system.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Tax Network USA for just a moment, and then we'll have a bit on academic freedom.
No, we don't have to learn about Tax Network USA. Okay, if Ro Khanna defends student use of AI in this, I think I might lose my shit. If he defends students writing essays with AI, I might genuinely have like an aneurysm. And I apologize for that. Hope not. I wouldn't call 39% popular support. Also, like I looked at some data earlier today about how Donald Trump is doing relative to when he started his term. When he started his term, he had like 90% approval from conservatives at large. That's gone down to like, I think like 82%. No. It's 79. Yeah, it's gone down by 11 points. Like, I don't know. He's losing his core base. It's not happening fast enough for me, but like, he is losing it.
It all in context. But it was like, fine, if that's what you want to talk about. But how about these broader conversations? How do we get this country talking and debating about serious issues in a way that is substantive? That's what we used to do in America.
I hate to tell you, my friend, the internet is not the most enlightened place, but we'll keep trying, and I'm happy to do this with you once a month if you want, and I'd rather do it in person, but all right, so let's jump to where Harvard's at, and we won't rush as I intended. Breaking, Harvard just released its final report on anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias. It's 300 plus pages and pretty devastating to read. I thought I knew what was going on at Harvard, but even I wasn't prepared for this. Let's break down the most shocking parts. A Jewish student was told they couldn't couldn't share their story of their Holocaust survivor grandfather's rescue efforts because he helped Jews reach British Mandate Palestine. Organizers said it was not tasteful and inherently one-sided because it mentioned Israel. Many Jewish and Israeli students were told their presence was offensive.
I need to see some citations on this. Like, I'm sorry. You couldn't share the story of your Holocaust surviving grandfather? I would want to know more about the details of that story.
Some were asked to denounce Israel to be considered one of the good ones. This came from every part of campus, including peers, instructors, and faculty. At a Harvard law event for families of the hostages, Harvard chose to move the Jewish students for safety reasons while protesters roamed around freely. In a university-wide survey, most respondents said they do not feel safe expressing their political views. So, okay, there's one portion, and I want to just show you this chart. It's rather shocking. Or not, I suppose. This is a chart of Harvard applicants having different admission chances based on race. If you are Asian and you apply to Harvard, you have a 12.7% chance of getting in. If you are African American, it's 56.1. We know they discriminate also against Jews. I have no doubt. I don't know the numbers on this, but I have no doubt they discriminate against Indians. So let's do the latter part first.
What is this? All right.
The Supreme Court ruled that Harvard and places of higher education cannot discriminate based on race, yet Harvard clearly has been doing this. They've been doing this for decades, by the way. Where do you fall on that?
I'm sorry, how clearly has been doing this via, like, tell us more, Dave. Explain the issue in more detail and depth. I would really love to hear your take on it, Dave. I bet you have so many good insights to share with us. Which views are being suppressed on campus?
Well, look, even our military academies, the Supreme Court has ruled for them that you can have diversity as part of the consideration. I think you need diversity. I got into, I went to Yale Law School. It's possible Usha Vance got into Yale Law School. I'm grateful that my class there and my class at college were diverse classes. Now, I think that should be one criteria. Obviously,
but did you get in with lesser grades than a white person? And would that have been fair?
Oh man, one of the things that always gets me about Dave being racist as fuck in his interviews, is that he like looks at the camera as if like he's asking a really hard-hitting journalism question, when like what the like it's not a hard-hitting journalism question. It's a what the fuck, Dave? Did you steal a spot from a white student, Ro Khanna? Is like not the gotcha you think it is, Dave.
I think I did well as a student, but the point is that it's fine to look at the totality of a person, their resilience, their grit, their extracurriculars, their.
But does any of that have to do with race? I mean, that seems to what it all boils down to. Fine, you could take extra Spanish after school, and you can volunteer and sell Girl Scout cookies. But what does this have to do with race?
Well, look, I do believe, as the Supreme Court said for our military academies, that race and diversity of race is an important consideration. Why did they say that for the military academies? Why can military academies take race into consideration? Because they want our military to have to reflect the population. Well, if you believe Harvard is a place where future leaders in different areas come out of, then you want it to have a reflection about of the country. But there shouldn't be quotas, and we certainly shouldn't be saving spots for people based on race.
Well, but how is that different than quotas? What if race is going to be a consideration? I mean, if you had an Asian kid and a white kid, and
how is considering race and diversity different from quotas? Well, it's different because considering and bringing that into consideration is just different than having a specific numerical target you're going after. Like what Ro Khanna is saying is that you don't necessarily need the quotas, but you do want in your military leadership, like, you know, people who are relatively in like a relative makeup, you know, mirror of our country. I know I'm being a little bit inarticulate at the moment, and I apologize for that. But like, what you want is for there to be some level of diversity in your tactics and in your way of thinking. And one of the ways you can get that, if you're a military leader, is by ensuring that the makeup of your military is diverse, because you want that diversity can come with like different ideas that people in the majority group might not have considered, like this shouldn't be rocket science, I guess, but maybe for Dave it is.
They had exactly, or if you have an Asian kid, a white kid, and a black kid, and they all have exactly the same grades and qualifications, in essence, you're saying put the black kid in, correct?
I don't think it's that simple where it's just everything is equal. I think you look at the life stories and the complexity of it, and you have race as one consideration, but you can't just say we're going to save X amount of spots for black kids. Or
also, like, Dave, do you think there's like a shortage of like white people? I mean, I don't know why I asked that, because I know that the answer is yes. I know that Dave thinks that, like Dave genuinely probably is one of those people who goes in for the great replacement theory. So I shouldn't have spoke.
Latino kids do it the way the military academies do, West Point and the Naval Academy. My view is, having talked to a lot of cadets, that they're very, very qualified, and they're also diverse, and they're doing extraordinary work for our country.
So, all right, so if 56% of black kids that apply to Harvard get in and only 12% of Asians, do you see a problem with that?
Is that recent? Is that after the decision or before the decision, those numbers?
It has to be, if it's legal, it has to be before, because now just in the last 2 years is when the ruling came down.
Yeah, I would want to make sure that they weren't saying X number of people of a certain race need to get in, and that it's actually a consideration, but not dispositive. And I don't, obviously I'm not involved in Harvard's admission, so I don't know the details, but I want to make sure that there weren't anything close to quotas.
Sure. But I just don't understand. Why do you think race matters? I don't think race matters. I think it has nothing to do with nothing. And wouldn't you, if you were an Asian kid who didn't get into Harvard, if you had great grades and you saw they were putting in more black kids just because they were black, wouldn't you kind of become racist?
No.
When you think about it, isn't racism the most logical thing to do in this situation? Well, your thoughts, Ro. Isn't it logical to sometimes discriminate against black people? What do you think? I think white supremacy is very logical. Like, what are you doing, Dave?
No, because I would say that this story is a story of a multiracial democracy, and that to really come together as a country, I would want to make sure that I understood different parts of the experience. And if someone is coming for the Black South, for example, where we had and overcame
Dave Rubin is like a Tim Heidecker character,
and coming from that experience, I would say I want that voice to be part of the American leadership, just like I want the kid of Indian immigrants, just like I want someone who's grandson of the people who scaled the cliffs of Normandy, or someone who traces their heritage all the way back to the Mayflower. We need to have our leadership
fish missile,
rise, bounce, rise, bounce,
the
rise,
beauty
bounce,
of
rise,
this
bounce.
country. And I
Thank
don't
you
think
very
we can
much
look
for
at
the
it
prime.
simply from I didn't make the highest scores. By the way, I also don't think that it's the end of the world where someone goes to college.
Sure, but okay, so your kids, though, who are Indian, they will be considered privileged in this future world that you're talking about, where...
Man, I hope Dave's children grow up to be deeply, deeply, deeply ashamed of their father. Like, holy moly. How can you say this stuff and, like, I don't know, not like want to bury your head in the sand? It's nuts. It's nuts to me.
Race will matter. So you would be okay. I mean, I just don't understand this notion, but I get it's something the Democrats really believe in right now. But you would be okay with your own children. I get you don't want quotas, so there's no number I can get you on, but you would be okay with your own children being discriminated against so that people of another skin color could get their job or get into the school, correct?
I wouldn't view it as discrimination. I would say that I would be fine with that, their race being one consideration of a whole host of different considerations. But I would also take account of people's economics. I would look at, for example, someone who's been coming from a deindustrialized steel town and or a town in the white working class that has faced opioids. I would look at that experience very significantly, right? I mean, I think rural America is underrepresented. I think kids from factory towns are underrepresented. I think
but to put those, I'm sorry, I'm just hung up on this. To put those kids in, I'm not against those kids having chances. You're okay with your own children being discriminated against. Indians do quite well in America. I think they might be the highest economic bracket in the.
No, that's not what he's saying, Dave. Get whatever you've used to block up your ears. Maybe you pierced your eardrums with like needles or something. Like I don't know what the fuck makes you this brain dead.
Entire country. So it would be your own children that would pay the price, and you're okay with that?
I don't think they would. I wouldn't call it discrimination.
Hey,
I would say
Rosewitch.
that they will have plenty of opportunities, and that they will be judged on the totality of who they are. And I'm confident in my own kids, and that they're going to have many opportunities to lead. And I would want them in a university setting or in a workplace where they were exposed to a diverse communities. I mean, how are they going to be effective as leaders in Congress if that I don't think my kids would do, I mean, how are they going to be effective as leaders in general if they weren't exposed to the diversity of this country?
Well, I think you're exposed to the diversity of country by living. Once you institutionalize.
Yeah, Hey, I know a thing or two about high idea living, and I know that I was exposed to many different kinds of people. Whenever I walked past the poor part of town, I could see them, and by walk through the poor part of town, I mean, ride a limousine through the poor part of town. When I did that, I could see all of the poor people that I didn't have to interact with, and, that exposed me to their ideas.
These numbers. I get it. That's why you're not giving me the number, because there's no number that's going to really make sense. But it will be harder for your children, literally your children, because Indians do.
Again, Ro Khanna should laugh at him. Like this is like when you play Dave Rubin's game like this, it just makes you look like a clown. Laugh at him in his face. He's absurd. He just told you that the way to be exposed to diversity is just living your life, and you don't need a diverse workplace or a diverse school or a diverse university, because you need to have a diverse life. What does that mean, Dave? Your life is done in those institutions, in work, in school, in university. That's where you meet your friends. God. Isn't that Dave Rubin, the washed up gay comedian? It's true. It is Dave Rubin, the washed up gay comedian.
Well, so Indians are going to be part of the oppressor class going forward. It'll be harder for your children to get into school and get jobs. And then don't you think we would have I
don't think Dave Rubin knows what an oppressor class is. Also, Dan from the internet, thank you very much for the raid. And welcome, raiders. Make yourselves comfy. We're dunking on Dave today.
Systemic sort of lowering of all of our...
Yeah, like smile at him and call him weird to his face. I guarantee you that would go more viral and do more for your social media team than literally anything else.
Our ability to do things once we keep bringing in people who are less qualified to do things?
No, because I think that the kids of Indian origin are going to have plenty of opportunities in this country, and they will benefit from being exposed to the diversity of this country. Many of them may not have met someone from the Black South or from the Hispanic South or from a rural factory town or a community. And I think that ultimately will be more beneficial to them than going to a place where Indian American kids generally, I'm speaking in the general, are just focused on academics.
Sure. Okay. Sure. I don't want to harp on any further. I'll just ask you one other, just as clean as possible. So if your son was applying to Harvard or your son was applying to Google, and they were told that actually they got passed over because there was an exact equal candidate who happened to be black, you would be okay with that?
If we're talking about Indian Americans in general.
What do you... Dave, people make hiring decisions all the time. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, all things being equal between different candidates, like, that rarely ever happens. But okay. Dave is so fucking weird.
Kids of Indian Americans' origins. If Google were to say we consider diversity as one criteria, I would be fine with that, and I would be confident that Indian American kids are going to have plenty of economic opportunities, and that they will be better served working in diverse environments.
Yeah, all right. Well, that one, again, I'm loving this conversation. That one, I just can't imagine why you would be okay with your own children being discriminated against. But we'll go, let's go to a white guy who's very excited that he's white. He almost became vice president, and he has an ability to speak to white guys, apparently, although I guess most people didn't buy it. Tim Walz.
I knew I was on the ticket. I would argue because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. True. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough of.
Congressman, again, I think we could connect this to the previous topic, but like this obsession with race and that they brought him in because he's white and he's somehow a dude and could talk about football. I mean, he seemed like a...
Dave, you're a white dude. I know you have access to like the demographics and analytics on your channel. I'm willing to bet you probably also talk to a lot of white dudes when you do your show. Like, acting as if it's insane to even bring it up that's weird. Hey, Looney Tunes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We love our lurkers here.
Kind of a clown to me, but it strikes me as this is the position the Democrats are now in. You have these white, sort of self-hating white people that are kind of in charge. You have a really radical base. You have the, sort of the old school Dems that are trying to hang on. It just seems like, basically it seems like you have a big mess on your hands.
It's not that messy.
I go to rural and factory towns all the time. I was just in rural Nebraska. I'm an Indian American, a son of immigrants, of Hindu faith. And let me tell you, I connect because I talk about how we're going to create good jobs, how we're going to bring technology, how communities have been neglected, how we're actually going to improve their lives. And I've never felt that my Indian ancestry or my faith was a barrier. I think that this is the most open country. And instead of figuring out how, quote unquote, we talk to white people, what we should be focused on is how we enlift America and how we have concrete ideas to improve people's lives. And if we do that, this country will respond to anyone, whether they're African American, Indian American, male, female, gay or straight. I have great faith in the American people.
On that, I completely am with you. I think that's why I think this thing about the obsession with race and that he can go code switch, it just sounds, I can talk to white guys, just sounds completely ridiculous. I want to show you one more clip.
How is it completely ridiculous? He's an older white guy who's jovial. Like that's that's a general skill he has.
Because everyone's curious right now. I mean, the polls are not good for the Democrats right now. I know.
One, then I think there's a senator waiting for me. I could keep House members waiting, but the Senate.
Okay, I promise it's the last one because the leader of your party in 28 might be a guy from ESPN.
Stephen A. Smith may run for president, as you know. I hope so. Do you have any advice for Stephen A. If he launches the run?
No, Stephen A. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. I love watching him. He's got great entertainment skills, which is very important. People watch him. A lot of these Democrats I watch, I say they have no chance. I've been pretty good at picking people and picking candidates, and I will tell you, I'd love to see him run.
All right, there you go.
All right, 1 minute, bring us home. I mean, is the future of the Democrat Party, is it the more radical, progressive wing? Is there any chance for the blue dog Democrat to come back? Or is it just we will go into a circus and it will be Stephen A. Smith? And I like Stephen A. It's not even a knock on Stephen A.
Look, I like Stephen A. He grew up the hard way. He started out as a Philly sports writer. I grew up in Pennsylvania. So, he didn't just become a celebrity. He had to work his way up. And I had to go on him Bill Maher's show with him. And let me tell you, he got the better of the debate. You don't want to sit there debating Stephen A., the guy who's paid millions of dollars to give in 60 seconds his view on like LeBron and his kid. He can take that skill and make it about politics. So, I think here's the thing with the Democratic Party. We got to have an open election. We got to have 10, 15 people run. We got to have people willing to mix it up, have ideas out there, not have a coronation. I think Stephen A. could add to that. But what we can't do is just be stale, can't have some kind of pick in the back rooms by the DNC. People want to see us mix it up and be out there. And ultimately, we need a compelling economic message. But I really think that what the party has got to do is show a willingness to go everywhere, an authenticity, a spontaneity, and not be stale. And that's, I think, why you see the reaction to Stephen A. and others who people say, look, we got to get some new voices in there.
We don't need new voices. We just need someone who's willing to stand up to a conservative who's being a dipshit, like, constantly. Like, we need someone who, like, say, is going to go on a show to talk with someone like Dave Rubin and tell him to his face he's weird and alienating and, like, bizarre. Sorry, we need you to actually do that. You don't need to have a new voice to do that. Just, do it. You can be that voice, man.
Congressman, I thank you for your time. And I do want to say that if your kids are considering how old are your kids?
I don't talk about kids these days on social media and stuff just because of the environment. But I will say, in general, Indian Americans are kids. I'm fine with the diversity that benefits, even though we disagree on race being a consideration.
Well, I was going to say, at the Rubin Report, we don't take race into consideration when we're hiring, so maybe they can get a gig over here. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, guys. I'll finish up for a moment or two without the congressman, but really do appreciate it, Congressman
Thank
Khanna.
you. Thanks for having me. Look forward to being back.
Anytime. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. We got a little rush there because we started a little late and it seemed like he had a hard out, but I do appreciate that he gave us a little more time. I hope you found that thoughtful and sort of what we need right now. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, it kind of proves why I can't be a Democrat anymore. I think this thing with race and this, I would say, slight confusion always, I'm always talking about the shell game with the Democrats. They're always worried about everyone else besides American citizens. I just see as an issue, there are some interesting legal debates to have as it pertains to the Supreme Court making decisions that the administration is going against and deportations and all of those things. But I think that perfectly shined a light on exactly why the Democrats are kind of screwy at the moment, because Roe is for whatever you think of the Democrats right at this moment. He's a moderate for them, right? That's why he's willing to talk to me. But some of the positions don't quite line up, but I will give the guy absolute credit for being willing to have that conversation. By the way, I will be at the University of Austin giving a speech.
No, we're good. We're good. We don't need the rest of this. What we do need is far more important as kind of a little palate cleanser here, which is, I actually found the show Dave Rubin used to do. It's called Hot Gay Comics. And there is actually an entire playlist of every single episode of Hot Gay Comics on the YouTube channel Here TV. Every single episode is on there. And I believe he's in almost all these episodes. And you know what? Let's just take a quick look here.
Are you enjoying the sweat? Are you guys? Yeah, I could tell something. You were all looking at me like, that's a lot of sweat. If I lose control of one of my eyes, just a little gel. I used a lot of gel today. Please give it up for Ann Nezapor, everybody. Ann!
Now he does like a lot of like the cold open stuff. I don't know if he's already here, but we can watch the very beginning because he does a lot of this. There we go. How old is this? This is like 12 years old, guys.
Hello!
There we go.
Holy Jesus, people showed up. I'll be damned. How you doing? Yes, how are you? We were a little nervous because this is above ground, and a lot of times gay people only do things in groups below ground. But I'm glad you're all here. This is very exciting. Hot Gay Comics live for television. By a show of hands, how many of you have televisions? You have a pretty good. Okay, and how many of you have the Here Network? Okay, we've got some work to do, but we're very good. So do we have all gay people? Is everyone here gay? You're gay. Very good, very good. Do we have some...
Yeah, because you know, gays are mole people. You know, we burrow. You know, that we burrow into the blanket pile, we burrow into the nightclub, we burrow into the prison. Wait, no, not that one.
Discussion, like, did some of you just come out right then? I should tell you I'm gay. We're at a gay show. I thought this would be a good way of doing it. Do we have some lesbians? I sense lesbians in the crowd tonight. Okay,
Dave's strong lesbian senses are tingling.
We're a little lesbian heavy on this side. We may have to move some of you. And straight people, I should ask about the...
All gays are dwarves. True.
Really? That was disproportionately powerful. Really? That many straight here? You, sir, obviously straight with your 4 chicks. And, a lot of straight people. Really? I was going to have security remove like 3 or 4 of you, but I guess we can't do that. Do we have any gays in relationships, or as I like to call them, gays from the future? You two, look at the way you're sitting. You guys are
Michael
mounting each
Richards'
other
stand-up
in
was
love.
probably better, more receptive.
How long you been doing it? 7 years. Which in gay years, 30? What are we talking? What is that? 7 years. What's the trick? 7 years. No tricks. Oh.
I know it's completely immaterial. But can we just talk real quick about how much I hate the font of the stage comics? And I also hate that it's spelled with an X. Can we just talk about that for like a brief moment? Like, who decided Comic Sans was appropriate just because it has the word comic in it? You know, like it's not the funny font. Stop it.
Oh, you're a funny crowd. Okay.
Uh-oh, they're funnier than me.
So a lot of...
I know it's not Comic Sans.
Straight people.
It's just a shitty font.
And a funny crowd. This could be tough.
It's Comic Sans.
For a comedian, for a gay comedian just trying to make his way in the world, this could be tough. But I feel good. 7 years, that's amazing. Can any gays beat 7 years? Can anyone beat 7 years? Anyone? One guy, okay. Yes, I've been masturbating for 25 years. No, that's your boyfriend, your lover, your partner. And how...
The dot above the I being above the X makes every muscle in my English degree having self clench.
Long. Pretty good. Oh, it's so easy to get gays to clap. It really is. It's interesting because you do a straight show, and straight crowds, you literally have to be married for like 30 years before they'll clap. Because then it's like, oh, Jesus, you've been having sex with that same motherfucker for 30 freaking years. But gays, literally, like somebody here met somebody on Craigslist tonight, and you're still out, you haven't done it yet, and we're proud of you. Do you want to raise your hand if that's you? Do you want to do that? Well, this is very exciting.
Is it? Is it
happy.
though?
The comics are literally so excited. As I walked out, one of the comedians said to me, "How gay are you going to be for this show?" Which I think that's a sign, don't you think?
Of what?
Okay, we'll edit laughter in there. So that's the beauty of television, people. For the people at home, that was very funny.
Can I stress that this is the first episode? Can I stress that this is episode 1? And he's already first episode, he's already bombing.
So we have some lesbians here. I love lesbians.
How much money do we have to donate for you to end our suffering? We are currently 23 subs away from hitting our goal.
But I have a question, actually, for some of the lesbians. Why I've met a disproportionate amount of lesbians with bad knees.
Wait, he's on other episodes? Yes.
Can anyone... Everywhere I go, I see lesbians with knee braces. You're pointing at her. Do you have bad knees? You have 2 bad knees.
Does the goal involve you ending my misery? Yes.
You were counting her knee also. 2... We, as lesbians, we share knees, and okay. So you have what happened? Because I'm always trying to find out what happened to the lesbians that they get bad knees.
You share knees?
I ruptured my tendon and tore my ACL.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Ruptured tendon, torn ACL, like NFL shit. That's what lesbians. Yeah, I noticed. I went with my boyfriend the other day. We went to Bed Bath & Beyond.
Lesbians always tearing their ACL. That's not a stereotype.
And I noticed that lesbians, and I think this might have something to do with it, lesbians don't use carts. They carry everything. Have you noticed that?
No.
They don't care how much shit they have. They're carrying, and they carry each other. They'll carry you. It doesn't matter.
No, we don't.
I have a good friend who's a lesbian. She's going to come.
I guess
out
I'm
here in a little bit,
bisexual.
and
I can't say we.
We go to Pinkberry. You guys going to Pinkberry? I feel like only gay people go to Pinkberry, right? Is that fair to say? Gays used to do ecstasy. Now Pinkberry. So.
What?
So we go to Pinkberry on Sunday nights, and we pretend we're a straight couple. That's what we do. It's sort of our little trick on the Pinkberry guy. And the other day, so I got some Pinkberry, and I got lychee. Am I saying it right? Lychee. Thank you. Thank you all very much. That was good grammar. Lychee. I got some lychee, and I'm not kidding. As I had it in my mouth, she said to me, "Dave, you know, that has the same consistency as vagina." And I've been out of the game for probably 10 years. And can anyone else confirm that? Is it a heavy vagina feeling?
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Make the pain stop for PHUCK's sake.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff